ever tried to, like, remember your first birthday party
Hmm.
or your first steps?
Yeah.
It's so weird how those early years, I mean, years just packed with, like, learning and new experiences, right?
Yeah.
They're just a total blank for, like, most of us.
It really is a fascinating phenomenon.
Yeah.
It's called infantile amnesia,
Okay.
and it's something that's been observed across cultures and even in other species.
So it's not just me then.
Yep.
Phew.
Yeah.
That's, I guess that's a relief. But, like, why can't we remember? You'd think those foundational experiences would be, like, the ones we'd hold on to the tightest.
Well, it's not that those experiences aren't important.
Right.
They absolutely shape who we become.
Yeah.
But the way our brains develop, especially in those early years, actually makes it pretty difficult to form those lasting conscious memories.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Right.
What's happening in a baby's brain that makes it so hard for them to hold on to those memories?
A big part of it has to do with the hippocampus,
Hmm.
the area of the brain that's responsible for forming and storing memories. In babies, the hippocampus is still under construction.
So it's like trying to build a house on a foundation that's still settling.
That's a great way to put it. And to make things even more complex, the hippocampus actually continues to develop after birth,
Rowdy.
with new neurons being created all the time.
Wow.
This process is called neurogenesis.
Okay.
And while it's crucial for learning, it might also disrupt the way early memories get stored. Imagine trying to organize a library while they're constantly adding new shelves and rearranging books.
Wow, I never thought about it that way. So our brains are literally growing so fast that it's hard to keep those early memories organized.
Exactly. But it's not just about the physical development of the brain. Language also plays a huge role in how we form and access memories.
You mean like because babies can't talk?
Right. Before we develop language, we experience the world in a very different way.
Mm.
It's all sensory data, feelings, and perceptions without the labels and categories that language provides.
So it's almost like those early memories are stored in a code we can't crack anymore.
In a way, yes. Once we start to use language, we begin to encode our memories differently.
Hmm.
We tell ourselves stories, we label our experiences, and that helps us to organize and retrieve them later on.
That makes a lot of sense. It's no wonder our earliest clear memories usually start around age 3 or 4, right around the time when we're really mastering language.
Exactly. But here's where it gets really interesting. Even though we can't consciously access those early memories, they still have a profound impact on us.
Really? But how can that be if we don't even remember them?
That's because there are actually different types of memory at play.
Oh,
We've been talking about explicit memory,
okay.
the kind you can consciously recall and talk about.
Right.
But there's also implicit memory, which operates beneath the surface of our awareness.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this implicit memory.
Think about riding a bike. You don't consciously think about every movement, right?
Hmm.
Your body just remembers how to do it. That's implicit memory in action. It's about learned associations, habits, and emotional responses. And this kind of memory is present from infancy.
So even though I don't remember learning to walk, my body still holds on to that knowledge.
Exactly. And it goes even deeper than that. There was a study where adults were played a Chinese children's song that they had only heard as infants.
Oh, wow.
Even though they had no conscious recollection of the song, they still showed a preference for it over other unfamiliar tunes.
Wait, you're telling me that my baby self might have preferences that I don't even know about?
Yeah.
That's wild.
It really highlights how those early experiences, even the ones we don't remember, are still shaping us in ways we might not realize.
We've got these like two memory systems working kind of in tandem, right? The conscious and the unconscious.
Yeah.
But what happens to those early memories over time? I mean, it's not like everything we experience gets stored perfectly forever.
Right. That's right. As our brains continue to develop, there's another process that comes into play called neural pruning.
Neural pruning, what is that?
It's kind of like decluttering your brain's hard drive.
Okay.
During early childhood, our brains start to streamline themselves by getting rid of connections between neurons that aren't being used as much. This helps to make our brains more efficient, but it's possible that some of those early memories get lost in the process.
So it's like those early connections, the ones that might hold those baby memories, are getting tidied away to make room for new learning.
Exactly. It's not that the memories are necessarily erased, but they might become much harder to access.
That makes sense.
Yuck.
But I've always wondered, does our sense of self have anything to do with why we can't remember those early years? I mean, it's hard to imagine having a life story without a you at the center of it.
That's a really insightful observation, and you're on to something important. Our ability to form those coherent narratives about ourselves, what we call autobiographical memory, is deeply linked to having a strong sense of self.
So babies are still figuring out who they are in the world, where they begin and end.
Precisely. And without that stable sense of self, those early experiences might not get organized in a way that makes them easily retrievable later on. It's like trying to write a memoir before you even know who the main character is.
And when does that sense of self usually start to emerge?
Around the age of 2.
Okay.
Which, interestingly enough, is right around the time that more enduring conscious memories begin to form.
It's all starting to connect now.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, what about those people who claim to have memories from way earlier than that? Like, I swear I've heard people say they remember being a baby.
You're right, there is some variation in how far back people's earliest memories go.
Yeah.
But it's important to remember that memory is a tricky thing. What we often perceive as memories can sometimes be reconstructions based on stories we've heard or photos we've seen.
So it's like our brains are filling in the blanks, creating a story that feels real, even if it might not be completely accurate.
Exactly. But even with those individual differences, the average age for the earliest clear memories is still around 3 to 4 years old.
Okay, that makes sense. But it's still so fascinating to think about everything that's going on in those developing brains, even if we can't consciously remember it.
Absolutely. And it raises another intriguing question. What if forgetting those early years isn't just a quirk of development, but actually serves a purpose?
Wait, are you saying there might be an advantage to not remembering our baby years?
Some researchers believe that's a real possibility.
Huh.
Infantile amnesia might actually be an adaptive trait, a way for our brains to prioritize rapid learning and development over storing every detail of our early experiences.
So it's like our brains are saying, hey, we've got a lot of growing to do here. Let's focus on mastering these essential skills and worry about the detailed record keeping later.
Precisely. Those early years are all about absorbing information, figuring out how the world works, and developing those fundamental abilities. By not getting bogged down trying to remember everything, our brains can optimize for that rapid growth and adaptation.
It's almost like downloading a software update.
Yeah,
You don't need to remember every line of code. You just need the program to run smoothly.
that's a great analogy. And just like a software update can enhance functionality, infantile amnesia might free up mental resources for continued learning and development.
So even though we may not remember every detail, those early experiences are still fundamentally shaping who we are.
Yeah.
It's like building a house. You might not see the foundation, but it's holding everything up.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about all the factors that influence our early memories or lack thereof.
Right.
From brain development to language to our sense of self. It's like this complex puzzle where every piece just kind of contributes to that bigger picture.
And we're still piecing this puzzle together.
Totally.
Even with all we've learned, there are still so many questions about those early years and how they shape us.
Exactly. Like, what if we could access those lost memories? Would it change how we understand ourselves? Would we make different choices? See the world differently?
That's a question that's sparked a lot of debate and speculation.
Yeah.
Some people believe that accessing those early memories could be incredibly therapeutic.
Yeah. Helping us to understand the root of our fears or anxieties or even personality traits.
I can see how that could be appealing. It's like getting a glimpse into the source code of your own personality.
Right. But it's important to remember that memory is a fragile and malleable thing.
Yeah.
Even our present-day memories are constantly being reshaped and rewritten as we revisit them.
Oh, wow.
So if we were to access those early memories, how could we be sure they're accurate?
That's a good point. And what about the ethical considerations? Like, who would have the right to access those memories? The individual, their parents, therapists.
Exactly. It raises a whole host of complex questions that we need to grapple with before even considering the possibility of unlocking those early experiences.
It definitely seems like there's more to consider than meets the eye. So it sounds like the mystery of infantile amnesia is still unfolding. But even without those conscious memories, we know those early years are incredibly influential.
Absolutely. They lay the groundwork for our personalities, relationships, how we view the world. It's a powerful reminder that even though we can't remember, those experiences are deeply woven into who we are.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much about my own brain and the hidden forces that have shaped me.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. And for everyone listening, the next time you catch yourself wondering about those lost years, just remember that while those memories might be hidden, their impact is undeniable.
Well said. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep those brains buzzing. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.